Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick 9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Superman, the 1978 Superman film with Gene Hackman, Marlon Brando, and yes, Christopher Reeve. If you're a fan of classic TV shows and movies, this is the channel for you. I'm going to bring you 15 unbelievable things you may not have known about this Superman film and a lot of other little tidbits. So let's get right to it. If you enjoy it, just let me know. Superman's outfit has always been iconic. We have the white, we have the blue, we have the red. But if you don't know, back in the 1970s, they didn't have green screens. It was more blue screens that were popular. And so this is important because whenever you did an old blue screen type effect, if you're wearing any blue that was similar to that, that would look invisible. And so the original Superman costume was going to be much darker blue, but they had to change it because it became transparent with the blue screen visual effects that they used. So once they changed the tone of the blue and it didn't clash with the blue screen, then they were ready to go and continued on with the movie. Interestingly enough, this movie was not billed as a Christopher Reeve movie. He wasn't that popular at the time. It was in fact telling fans and people who love the movie industry that, hey, Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando would be in this movie, so you have to come and check it out. But there were a lot of interesting things with Marlon Brando behind the scenes. In fact, he decided that he was not going to memorize the lines of the movie that he had to say in advance. So in the scene where he puts the little infant, his child Kal-El, into the escape pod, he was reading the lines from the diaper that the baby was wearing during the scene. In fact, he told director Richard Donner that the only way to keep his performance fresh and not to have it seem too over-rehearsed was to record the first time he read the lines. Now, Donner admitted that this was for the best because he wanted to keep Brando happy, and once he ended the scene and yelled "cut," entire cast and crew ended up in a loud applause, of course, praising Brando for his work. What do you think? Was this overkill, or were they just a little too sucking up to Marlon Brando? Brando was a very interesting person on set. In fact, on the first day that he was on the Superman set, he suggested to the director Richard Donner that the camera should roll during the rehearsals because Brando said, who knows, we might get lucky. Now, according to Donner, that very first take that he did was the one that they used in the finished film. Remember, going back to how Brando didn't want to seem too rehearsed. Some people behind Brando's back would say that he was notoriously lazy and was consistently pulling little stunts in order to lessen his workload. He didn't get along with Reeve much, with Reeve saying that essentially Brando was phonied it in, and it shows, and criticizing him. Christopher Reeve was not the first choice to play Superman. In fact, the casting director, Lynn Stallmaster, was the first to suggest that Reeve was the perfect Superman for this film. But Richard Donner felt differently. He felt that Christopher Reeve was too skinny and too young to play this part. But as you all know, he was finally cast, and Reeve did an amazing screen test that blew away the director and all the producers. And once he had the part, he underwent a really strong physical training session for months. He was starting at about 170 pounds, and he bulked up to 212 pounds. So whenever you hear these new actors in superhero movies and they have these suits that are all bulked up, check out Christopher Reeve. There's no bulking in his suit. This is all 212 pounds of him in really strong, real muscle, which is unbelievable unto itself. In order for you to understand how much Christopher Reeve actually worked out during the entirety of the film while he was off camera, during the full course of filming this movie for 2 years, the beginning shoots did not match the later shoots, and they had to be retaken because he was a lot bulkier at the end of the movie, or essentially at the end of filming versus the beginning when they started filming the movie. David Prowse was the man who played Darth Vader. That is the man under the suit in the movie Star Wars. Now, he was a bodybuilder, and in fact, Christopher Reeve underwent his regime. That is, worked out the same way that Prowse did, and they got along. Unfortunately, Reeve fired Prowse after the bodybuilder suddenly left the country for 10 days without any warning or explanation. In fact, once Christopher Reeve made the film, and the creators of the Superman character, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, watched the film, they were both moved to tears after seeing it for the first time, feeling that it was just simply perfect. We all have probably heard about Reeve and his unfortunate accident on horseback, and he was an athlete if you really think about it. In fact, he flew gliders as a hobby, and having that type of experience as a pilot made and contributed to Superman's flying feel. So while he was all rigged up with wires and swaying this way and that, up and down, left and right, a lot of his movements were replicating his experience as a glider pilot. They had an extensive time in which they planned for this film, 3 years, and they shot it in 2. And at the height of filming, over 1,000 full-time crew members and 11 units were spread over 3 studios and 8 countries around the world. 1 million feet of film was used for this movie, and it had the highest production budget of any film at that time. This is a fun, simple one that may fly over the heads of a lot of people, and some people may have caught it. But if you really notice, you could see that Superman and Clark Kent have their hair differently. That is not too strange, but what is cool is that Clark Kent and Superman's hair part in opposite directions. And that is, of course, on purpose and in order to hide himself from the general public as Superman. Now, the other star of the film, I'm talking other than Brando, was Gene Hackman. He refused to shave off his mustache, which he wore regularly during that time, in order to play the character of Lex Luthor. Now, in one of the early sheets of the movie, his face is featured with a mustache. Before Richard Donner and Hackman met face to face, Donner proposed to Hackman that if he would shave his mustache off, Donner would shave his too. So Hackman agreed. It turned out later that Donner did not have a mustache at all. He wore a false mustache that he peeled off at the last moment. Now, realizing that Gene Hackman had been had, he roared with laughter and from then on was on Donner's side throughout the production and pretty much supported him in everything he did. Not only did Gene Hackman make an issue with his mustache, but he also made an issue with his head, or that is his hair. He refused to shave his head or even wear a bald cap to play Lex Luthor. But here, it gets more exciting. To go around this issue, Hackman's own natural hair was styled differently from scene to scene in order to give the appearance of him having changed hair pieces or different types of wigs. Now, numerous hair pieces are often visible in the underground complex of his, and Hackman relented, finally deciding that he would wear a skull cap in one scene when he's taken to prison by Superman. And if you pay attention closely, you will look at that part where he rips off the hairpiece from his head to address the prison's warden. Yeah, some of that's acting, but some of that isn't. He just hated wearing that skull cap or that bald cap. 1978 was still primitive for special effects, but they used a lot of practical shots as well. If you remember the scene where there's a young Clark Kent and he kicks the football essentially into orbit, well, how did they do that? Well, it was kind of ingenious, but also very practical. They used an air cannon and they placed it underground so it was out of the view of the camera. They placed the football there and they fired it, and it made it look like he essentially launched it into orbit, which is pretty awesome. Well, that's it for this video, guys and gals. Thank you so much for your support. I thought that because the new Superman 2025 film came out, that a lot of people would be interested in maybe revisiting the 78 film, and so I brought it to you here. Let me know if you're interested in learning about Superman 2, 3, and definitely 4, Quest for Peace, to see if I can do a little breakdown with tidbits of those movies as well. Let me know in the comments, and I do appreciate it. We'll see y'all next time. Don't forget to stay positive, but most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much to my Platinum and Diamond tier patrons, especially David D, Jerry D, Daniel B, Citizen Kane 359, Vito L, Sally N, Russ C, and Beatrice R. If you want to be on this list, make sure to check the links in the description. It's a great way to support the channel. Thank you.